India. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Got a loaded show, so let's go ahead and jump right on into it. As you can tell by looking at my normally perfect and gorgeous face, you can see I've been in a little bit of distress. I was involved in a motorcycle accident and got beat up pretty solid by the car and the road that I had a lot of hard contact with. Can't go much into the details right now, but let's just say I ended up spending several hours in the emergency room and am even now trying to get this arm to do what it's supposed to, but the doctors will take care of that, and I'm an old tough bird, and things will be just fine. I'd like to say thank you to all the people who on Facebook who saw all the things, made all the comments, and also to the people who have been sending their thoughts and prayers out. Thank you very much. It means a lot. But I'm going to tell you real quick, without getting all puppies and rainbows, that the human spirit never ceases to amaze me. Not so much in myself. I'm just a guy. But as I'm crawling off the road in the middle of the night, now this was 11 o'clock at night, and I'm crawling off the road. I'm a bloody mess, and before I could crawl the 6 feet over to the edge of the road, there were at least 10 people there trying to assist me. There was one woman was, and I hope that you're watching this show so that I can say thank you. One woman was I don't know, some kind of trainee, either EMT or some whatever, but she had a first aid kit. Brought it out, bandaged me up. I was, like I said, a bloody mess. Bandaged up my arm, bandaged up my head. Now, much as I love her, you could tell she was training because the thing popped off my head a couple of times, and I ended up, the EMT guy said I looked like a mummy, when they found me. But nonetheless, that helped stop some of the bleeding and everything, and I'm much appreciative of that. Another person I did not know brought out a blanket that's nicer than anything I have in my house, laid it on the ground and said, lay down, lay down. I refused to lay down because I just refused. That would have been admitting defeat. And although I was on my hands and knees, I wasn't out. And so I stayed on my hands and knees till the EMTs got there and lifted. And I stood up myself just to make sure I could. But again, this lady laid out this beautiful blanket and said, just lay on it. I said, I'm not going to mess up your blanket, all this kind of stuff. But there were, at one point, I believe 15 people, again, stopped in the middle of the night to help somebody they did not know. Whenever you start doubting the human spirit of human people, and there's a lot to doubt it for, every time you watch the news, things like that kind of bring you back and make you say, okay, maybe the world's not quite as bad a place as we thought. So I'd like to say thank you to all those people, and thank you to my family and my friends and all the people who have been with me through this, and who unfortunately are going to have to put up with me as the rest of this goes. But again, doctors will fix this. Tough old bird, will be fine. But like I said, you can't keep a good man down. So if we find a good man, let's make a point of that. so if you can put up with this nonsense on my, my buddy Ron Mexico says I look like Mikhail Gorbachev now. But if you guys can put up with this nonsense on my head, let's go ahead and let's continue the road to making me an internet superstar. What do you say? And I really do mean that when I say thank you to all the people that stopped and helped, and all the people that have sent their thoughts and wishes and prayers, and I really do appreciate it. Let's get on to sports. I wasn't able to do a show last week, so what's going to happen is I had a script written for it. I was ready to go, but things happen. So because of that, I'm going to have to ad lib some of this, and some of the stuff that I was going to talk about has changed in the nature of the way it has. So we're going to have a clue when I'm improvising, so that you'll know. That sounds like it happened a couple weeks ago. It did. All right. So I wasn't able to do a show last week. But I'm a man and I'm a sportsman, so I'm not one of those guys that's going to duck away and everything else. I'm going to take my lumps like a man. The Final Four was played out, and as we said on the last show, it was Michigan State played Duke and Wisconsin played Kentucky. And if you're a sports fan at all, you already know how it turned out. Duke beat Michigan State and Wisconsin beat Kentucky. The first game was pretty much a case of the clock striking midnight for Cinderella, as Michigan State ran into a just more talented, better team in Duke. But however, when I say that, let me say this. Coach Izzo once again proved what a great coach this guy, great college coach this guy is, because he takes a team, molds them through the season, including their losses, and they learn from their losses and get better from their losses, molding them through the season, making them better so that as the year progresses, so that by the time the tournament rolls around, they can strike from even a 7th seed to make a Final Four run. So congratulations to them. another good season and another good job by Tom Izzo. And if they ever let him go, that'd be just a joke. Second game was a lot harder for me to take. I told you, and anybody that knows me now knows that I am a hardcore Kentucky fan. But I'm also not one of those pansies that sits there and runs his mouth when they're winning and talks all this trash, and then when they lose, go, hey, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's all cool. It's not. It wasn't cool. It did matter, and it hurt a lot. So, I mean, I'm not ducking away from it. I took a lot of crap for it. I deserved it because I'm a fan. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. It does matter to me that Kentucky lost to Wisconsin, and it hurt a lot. As good a game as Wisconsin played, Kentucky played an equally bad one. I have no idea why with 35 feet of all-American bad guys, big guys, going down on our team, we didn't go down low and make their best player work harder on defense. And there are 100 other ways Kentucky could have played better and won that game to face Duke, which would have been a great Final Four, a great national championship game. But it's over. You can't change the past. You know, we lost. We got beat by the team, and no excuses. Again, to the people that were complaining about the refs and the calls in the second half, I say this, as I always say, if you play your game strong, you play your game right, be ahead enough to take it out of the hands of the refs. And so I'm not going to sit here and blame the refs or blame anything else other than Kentucky didn't get the job done. Wisconsin won the game. We didn't go with our strength against their strength. I don't know why, but we just didn't. And Wisconsin took advantage of that, and they won the game. So, Kentucky's out. And like I said, I was really hurt. I was so beat up by the loss that I couldn't watch a championship game of my favorite sport. I couldn't watch the championship game. The game came on. I had it on. I had the night off. I had the game on. The players were walking on the court. And it just, my heart was just sinking. I had to change the channel. I ended up watching a Terminator movie that I had on my DVR. I just couldn't watch the game. The wound was Saturday night. The game's Monday night. It was just too soon for me to get over that. And in fact, I couldn't even watch ESPN for 5 days after that, which is my favorite thing to watch. That's why I have two TVs, so I can watch one and have ESPN on the other all the time so that I can see what's going on. I couldn't even watch ESPN for 5 days because I didn't want to hear all the what happened to Kentucky stories, because I knew what happened to Kentucky. They lost. Now, I know that seems a little bit extreme, but I don't apologize for it a bit. If you're not passionate enough about your team or your sport or your game, that it doesn't affect you when they lose, then how in the world are you going to enjoy it when they win? You know, I don't apologize for the way I am. It's passion. It's love of my team and love of my game and love of sports in general. So I don't apologize for it. I know it seems extreme. My wife thinks it's a goof, but that's just the way I am. I did, however, my movie ended, and I switched over to see how the thing ended. It was about 1:30 left in the championship game. Duke was up by enough that I knew that there was no doubt they were going to win. So congratulations to Duke. Coach K, you got another one. Great program, great coach, great team. Got nothing to say. Kentucky, Coach Cal, do me a favor and let's do something. You know, I know it sounds like when they call it from the neighborhoods I come from, they call these white people problems. But Coach, we made it to the championship game last year. We made it to the Final Four this year. You know, let's get another championship to go that one that we won way back in 2011. Yeah, those really are rich people problems, but we'll be all right. Kentucky will be all right. Now, the thing as usual, now that this happened, and why I got so excited about this season, as usual, the whole seven players of the team are leaving for the NBA. This happens almost every year, which was why I was so excited about the 2014-2015 team. Some of the guys from the previous team had stayed, and I actually knew their names. I knew who they were, and I was really rooting for this team because of the first time that we have experience, but now we're going to be starting with a whole new team of one-and-dones, and I may or may not learn their names. It just, this was a tough one. This was really tough. Now, switching gears a little bit, I was checking my email at charlie.india@yahoo.com and saw someone had hit me up. Somebody sent me an email. The email said, Charlie. And I said, what? MMA is my favorite sport. Why don't you talk about it on the show? I said, all right, why not? Let's do that. There just happened to be a Bellator MMA special over the weekend, which was now actually 2 weekends ago. And on top of that, the World Series of Fighting threw out their WSOF 20 extravaganza. And most people say extravaganza. Medication is what medication is. Bellator put out 4 fights. Now we're talking a little about, just a little about each one. The first one threw out a couple of heavyweights. Terry Johnson, who's 6'1" and 264 pounds, versus Alexander Volkov, which is a perfect Russian name, isn't it? Alexander Volkov. He's 6'6" and 243. And dude, I am crushing for a good heavyweight fight, especially in mixed martial arts where they can kick and they can punch and they can just do whatever they want. And this wasn't it. Johnson waddled his 264 pounds around the ring, spent most of the time keeping Volkov pinned against the cage. And really just no action in this thing at all. It was a split decision for Johnson, but it was a horrible match. And I was just crushed. Come on, put out something good. So the second fight was between, and I got to read these names because Tiger Sarnovsky against Marcin Held. They were a couple 155-pound guys. And this fight shows what I both love and hate about MMA. I, like most people who watch any fighting sports, expect a lot of action. That's why you want punches, kicks, throws, whatever, So one of the things I hate about MMA is the ground and pound. Now, before you say, Charlie, you just don't get it, you don't understand, let me tell you, I do. I understand. Okay, for those of you who don't know what ground and pound is, it's where one fighter gets the other fighter on the ground and spends the rest of the round trying to maneuver his opponent into, when they maneuver him, they can maneuver him into a host of vicious holds. The arm bar, the knee bar, my favorite, the rear naked choke, which I just love the name of that, the rear naked choke. And my favorite, the hammer fist to the head. So I understand what ground and pound is for. It's to get maneuvered into that final finishing move. But I hate it. Another purpose of the ground and pound is to wear your opponent out for later rounds, because it is tough when this guy's fighting. But the problem is when you have 2 guys that are good at ground and pound, good on the ground, all right, one guy is able to defend the other guy's moves. So it really is like watching paint dry. It's just awful. So this fight was 2.5 rounds of 2 sweaty guys rolling around the ring, rolling around the mat before the thing that I most love in MMA happens. The ground and pound turned into the submission move. Held slapped a knee bar on Tiger and bent Tiger's knees in. It looked like a question mark. This thing was just horrible the way he did it. Tiger didn't tap out, to his credit. Tiger did not tap out, but when Held rolled them over, and put even more pressure on the move, Tiger actually screamed in pain, and the referee jumped in there and stopped the fight. So it was 2.5 rounds of just not entertaining stuff to get that 15 seconds of wow, that was really great. So the next fight, I keep doing this on my computer. I'm sorry, guys. I'm having just bits of issue here. I hope you'll bear with me. The next fight was, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Rafael Carvalho and Joe Schilling, and they put on a good fight, featured with Carvalho getting knocked down in the 3rd, but coming back to win the fight. And again, that's what I like about sports. What I like about fighting, MMA, physical sports like that, is what happens when you get knocked down. Carvalho got knocked down in the 3rd and final round and came back and was still able to win the fight. I love that kind of stuff. That's what makes this sport exciting. David Jansen and Will Brooks finished the night with a 5-round championship fight that was exciting all the way through. Jansen ended up getting cut in the 3rd. Now keep in mind, these are 5-round fights now. Getting cut in the 3rd, and both of them fought all the way through. Literally for 5 rounds, they were never separated. There was constant action going on. And at the final bell, Jansen gets the unanimous decision victory. And normally I don't like fights that go to the judges, but and these with them being 3 and 5 rounds, a lot of them are going to. But both fighters were so wore out at the end of the thing. They were down on the ground. They managed to get to a squat position, and neither one of them could stand up. And they just looked over at each other with, way to go, good fight. And it really was a good fight. Overall, with the exception of the big guys, hugging each other for 3 rounds, Bellator put out a good show. But the problem I have with MMA is on full display. Fights are supposed to be action, and ground and pound aspect of MMA kind of brings it to a grinding halt. I don't know what they can do about it. I mean, UFC is doing a little bit better job about, guys, you got to fight, and then breaking them up. But it's still an awful lot of just clinching and grabbing and hand fighting and things like that, which if you're in a real fight, is important. But to be watching a fight like this, it just sucks all the fun out of it. And I understand, really, I do understand that going from a front guard to a side guard to controlling opponent's back is probably takes more strength and skill than anything else that we do in sports. And it's one of the hardest things to do in sports, but it's just hard to watch sometimes. It's just hard to watch. Let's switch gears for a minute, but have no fear. We're not nearly done with MMA, boxing, or a new sport for me, kickboxing. I know kickboxing has been around for a long time. It's just I've never sat and watched it. And in the interest of widening my horizons of sports, I sat and watched a kickboxing show, and we'll talk about that. But one of the things I enjoy the most is that the NBA is the NBA. The NBA season is over, and now it's time to bring on that incredibly long but delicious playoff run that they do. Since the playoffs are so long, we won't be breaking down matchups and things like that right now. There will be plenty of time for that later. For now, though, there are a couple things that make the first round interesting. One of the things that I'm going to keep an eye on is on the 1 versus 8 matchup in the West. No, New Orleans is not going to beat Golden State 4 games, but the series is worth watching for 2 reasons. The first reason is to see how Golden State holds up under the pressure of the playoffs. Steph Curry is deep in the MVP conversation, along with becoming not only one of the greatest shooters in the league right now, but I believe when all said and done, Steph Curry is going to be one of the greatest shooters in the history of the league. And that team is playing well, and they're playing together. They're playing team ball, and they won the West by 10.5 games, which is huge. But this is not Thursday in Minnesota. It is the playoffs. Okay, I'm looking forward to see how these guys play under the lights and the pressure that goes with being in the playoffs. They'll be there. They'll be fine for this series. But I'm keeping an eye on them for the rest of the way. Right now, they're up 3-0, winning both games at home, and in impressive fashion, coming back last night from 20 points down to start the fourth quarter on the road in New Orleans. They came back and not only tied the game, sent it to overtime, they won the game in overtime. So now the series is 3-0 with an impressive road win coming from 20 points down in the fourth quarter. But the second reason I want you to watch this series, or the game that's left of it, is Anthony Davis of the Pelicans. Now, if you don't recognize the name, start paying attention to this because this kid is going to be something beyond special. I'm going to give you a Charlie India off the wall, you heard it first prediction. If this kid can avoid injury, because again, best ability is availability. If this kid can avoid injury, there will be a new number 23 in the conversation for best basketball player ever. Davis played at Kentucky for a year. We won a championship. Oh, the good old days. And he won every award imaginable and everything else. And I have to admit it. I'm stunned, though, at the way his game has developed since he's become a pro and got drafted in 2012. It's beyond remarkable. In college, he was a shot blocking machine, a maniac on the boards, was a high-flying dunk master, but basically had nothing to offer on offense. In the pros, though, he has done more than blossom. He has risen like a pelican on a rocket. Yeah, take a second to picture that. He ended up averaging right at 25 points a game this season, including a double clutch three-pointer to win a game and 31 points against San Antonio on the last game of the season to secure a spot in the playoffs. So I got to admit that in a million years watching him play at Kentucky, I never saw Anthony Davis as being the number one option on an offensive part of the game. But this series will give us a chance, one more game, will give us a chance to see him on the big stage, and I can't wait for the rest of it. The one game that's going to be left. It is the first time in the playoffs, so I give him a bit of a pass this round, okay? But I'm anxious to see him play not only this last game that they're going to be playing because they're going to lose, but next season and for many seasons. His kid's only 22. But I'm telling you what, old number 23 might want to be paying attention to young 23 unibrow, because he's looking good. And there's something to keep an eye on there. However, Old 23 has 6 golden reasons why he's not too worried about the unibrow just yet. But it is something worth watching. Sticking with the NBA for a bit, let's just do this. The voting for MVP is going on, and the front runners are Steph Curry and James Harden. Already I've given Steph Curry a lot of respect and love on the show. Harden literally, I'm not a fan of his personally, but he literally put a saddle on his back and carried that team. That team rode him all the way to the playoffs. So I'm anxious to see how they progress. At this point, they're 2-0 against Dallas right now, and they should advance for the first one. But anyway, back to the NBA and the most valuable player. Russell Westbrook is in the mention for that. But with Durant out, they didn't even make the playoffs. And again, he's most definitely the most valuable player on Oklahoma City. But this is the reward for the most valuable player of the league. The player that I think, and see when you can figure this out, the player that I think is most deserving of the award is not even being mentioned. Haven't heard a word about him. It's a player that I am afraid now is facing the backlash from his own popularity and his own success. We have, whether we wanted to or not, followed this kid since he was in high school. He has 2 championships. He has taken 2 different teams to the finals. He had 4 consecutive years of getting a team to the finals. He's done a zillion commercials, and he has a snazzy nickname. But because of the way the media, social media, has exploded in the last 12 years, we're just sick and tired of hearing about it. All that said, LeBron James has to be in the consideration for the MVP for the following reasons. Now, this worked better before Friday night, but we're going to try it anyway. Here's why I think LeBron James is the most valuable player in the league. Last year, think of last year, okay? This was Miami. This was Cleveland. This year, that's not going to work. Okay, this year, this is Miami. This is Cleveland. What changed? Oh, LeBron went to Cleveland. Look what happens. He leaves Miami. They don't make the playoffs. They were in the championship the last 4 years. They don't even make the playoffs this year. Chris Bosh injury, blah, blah. They didn't make the playoffs. Cleveland didn't make the playoffs last year. And before you say anything, Kyrie Irving was on the team last year. And Kevin Love has never seen the playoffs in his life. And now Cleveland is the 2nd seed and will probably be the team coming out of the East. How can you say that guy is not your MVP? What goes up? Pretty basic stuff. But because we're all sick of hearing about LeBron, and again, this will be, I think this may be a problem with the players that with the one and dones, or they don't go to college at all. By the time they're 30, you've been listening to these guys for 12, 13 years. You're just sick of it, you know. And I think it's horrible that he's not going to get this award because of what he's already done, and his own fame is catching up to him, and that they just want anybody but LeBron to win this thing. When I'm a LeBron fan, and I mean, again, the rise of Cleveland and the demise of Miami. What more do you need? You know. All right, let's get back to fighting. Nah, we're going to get back to talking about fighting. We ain't going to fight unless you want to. You know, I'm kind of laid up right now, but we'll be all right. NBC, we're going to talk about the WSOF, the World Series of Fighting MMA, on the next episode. But because I'm going to talk about a little bit about boxing right now. NBC put out their 2nd PBC, which I found out stands for Premier Boxing Championship, show last a couple Saturdays ago. And it featured 2 boxing matches. Of course, I applaud them. I really do applaud NBC for getting boxing on regular network TV and making it easier for us to see. The first fight of the night, what a fight. Oh my gosh, what a fight. It was between Peter Quillen, who's 31-0, and Andy Lee, who's 34-2. So if you can do math at all, that's a combined record of 65-2. These guys are good. And they both all weigh in around 160 pounds. These guys wasted no time getting into it, and Lee got knocked down in the first round. He would have gotten knocked down again and maybe even knocked out if he hadn't managed to fall just right into the rope. And I know rope's not supposed to help you, but it did. At the end of the first round, he was getting ready to go down again, but the bell rang. He was still on his feet. The fight continued. Quillen comes out cautiously in the second round. because he's looking for the knockout. He didn't get the knockout, but he did land some hard shots. So it was another round where Lee just got beat up again. So then the third round comes out. Lee gets knocked down in the third, and not only does Lee get knocked down, he gets cut. So now we got 7 more rounds to go. He's done. But here's what Lee does. I don't know if he's seeing his own blood. If he knows he got knocked down twice and now he has to fight, that brother got up and fight. And from then on, this fight was on, to the point that Quillen gets knocked down in the 7th round. The thing about this was, it was the first time Quillen had ever been knocked down in his career. So now you have a fight where both guys have been knocked down. One guy's cut and bleeding. They're both fighting for their lives. At the end of the 7th round, both of these guys just look like they've been beat up bad. The final few rounds were a little slow, but it was because, again, they were both beat up. They couldn't keep up the pace they were setting those first 7 rounds. This was Rocky fighting Apollo Creed. No, who was the other guy? Mr. T's character. Yeah, you can only last 6 rounds, Rocky. That kind of thing. And that's what this fight ended up being. After the 7th round, they had put so much out that they just didn't have a lot left. They were both beat up enough that they were just looking for that one-punch knockout. So the last few rounds were a little slow, but the fight itself, the overall fight, was just great. The reason it was slow is they beat each other up, and all that kind of stuff. So it goes to the judges, and to show you how close this fight was, and I'm normally, again, not a fan of this, but here we go. The score was 113-112 for Quillen, 113-112 for Lee, and 113-113, a draw. And again, normally I'd just be fuming over a draw. I hate a draw. But in this particular case, it was a truly amazing fight by two truly amazing guys, giving it their all and putting it all out there. And the fact that this thing ended in a draw, I'm not disappointed with it all, because it truly was an even fight all the way through. The problem with that is when you get dessert first, sometimes dinner just doesn't taste as good. The second fight was set up to be a marquee matchup between Danny Garcia and Lamont Patterson, both weighing in at 143. I'd seen Patterson fight, so I was really looking forward to this one. But man, did they stink up the joint. They laid an egg. Not much of note went on. In fact, the only notes I took were that in the 4th round, the fans were booing. After seeing that first fight, the fans were booing due to the lack of action in the fight that they were watching. And the only real punches were thrown in the 8th round and the 11th round. And the final note was 2 rounds worth of punches were thrown. The rest was crap. This one went to the judges. It was a split decision for Garcia, but only because neither fighter did a darn thing. Still, the first fight made the show worth watching. And thanks NBC again. And I'll be watching next month. Okay. That's going to do it for now. Like I said, I still have a lot to say. I've been out for a little while, so I've been piling up notes. I don't want to take up too much of your time at one sitting, because I know, there's only so much of this you can handle at one time. So I'm going to load up another one of these bad boys. I'm recording this, I believe it's Friday. I'm going to load up another one on Monday. So we'll be able to cover more MMA. Like I said, the World Series of Fighting. I'll give you a spoiler. Somebody gets put to sleep. A new sport format for me, Glory Kickboxing. 2 guys end up fighting twice in the same night. Can't beat that. Looking ahead, there will be some more NBA playoff coverage, and the UFC put on a show Saturday night on Fox. They put on an all-night deal starting at 6, and going all the way through. You got to see the prelims and everything else. The main event was Machida versus Rockhold. I have to admit, I didn't know those guys at their names at the time, but I did get to watch the fight. There's a heck of a lot of action to talk about in this thing. It's going to be worth watching too. Also, I was going to watch Orlando City versus the Crew. Yes, that's soccer. For those of you who didn't know, I didn't know. But not even all the meds I'm on right now could have made that happen. So I'll try to catch some soccer, because I know the most popular game in the world, and you guys love it, and blah, blah, blah. So I'll try to get some coverage of soccer in for you. You can catch me again, like I said, charlie.india at yahoo.com, or comment on the YouTube channel that you're watching now. And if you just can't get enough of me, and really, who can, you can go to YouTube, do a search for Ron with 2 N's, Mexico 99. That's Ron, 2 N's, Mexico 99. And you'll see that I co-host a show called The Stiff Arm with Ron Mexico with my good buddy, Ron Mexico. So if you want to see more, it's a little more R-rated than this show is, but I'm telling you, it's good sports. And you'd be surprised at the goofy stuff we cover on that thing. So that'll about wrap up show 105. 106 will be coming in just another couple or 3 days. Again, this is Charlie India saying, get out there and play a little bit.